Hello, welcome to Informatica Support TV. I am Usha Nepalli from Informatica Global Customer Support Team. The topic I'm going to be discussing today is establishing connectivity to Netezza using PowerExchange for Netezza. The agenda for the video is installation or the registration of plugin, connectivity to Netezza from Powercenter client side, importing sources and targets into the Powercenter repository from the designer, connectivity to Netezza from Powercenter server side, and then finally configuring and running a sample session from the workflow manager. The plugin registration. Starting with Informatica version 9, there are no additional components that need to be installed on either the client side or the server side. The PowerExchange for Netezza components are installed as part of the base Informatica 9 installation. We just need to make sure that the license key includes the option PowerExchange for Netezza, and then we just need to register the plugin to each repository that you're planning to use to connect to Netezza. The plugin file that needs to be used for plugin registration is found on the server side. It comes along with the installation files. You will find it in the info home server bin plugin directory, and it's called pmnetezza.xml. We need to FTP this file to the local Windows machine where you are planning to access the Informatica administration console or administrator from. And once you have the file available, you just need to access your repository, click on the plugin tab, and register the plugin. I am going to go over the steps via a demo. The next point would be setting up connectivity from the client side. The basic prerequisite for this is that you have the Netezza odbc drivers installed on each Powercenter client machine. These drivers can be obtained from the vendor Netezza IBM. And then we will go over the steps that we need to do for establishing connectivity from the server side. Again, the prerequisite here is that you have the Netezza odbc drivers installed on the Powercenter server machine as well. Once the drivers are installed, we set the following environment variables: odbc home, odbc.ini, nz odbc.ini path, ld library path. And once we are done with the environment variables, we create a sample DSN in the odbc.ini file, providing all the Netezza database connectivity details. These are the variables that I have set in my environment. As you can see, the odbc home is set to the directory where the odbc driver manager resides, which is info/home/odbc 7.0. The odbc.ini variable is actually pointing to the odbc.ini file all the way, including the file name. And the $nz odbc.ini path is again pointing to the driver manager directory, odbc 7.0. And the ld library path has the directory where the Netezza odbc libraries reside, which is home unepal nz odbc 603 lib64. And this is a sample DSN entry that you need to make in the odbc.ini file. As you can see, it has the driver, which is called libnzodbc.so, and we have provided that with the full path. And then we have the server name, database, and other credentials that you would need to establish connectivity to the Netezza database. I'm going to move over to the demo. This is the administration console. I already have the pmnetezza.xml file FTP from my installation directory to this local client machine. I select my repository, and the repository has to be in exclusive mode when you try to register a plugin, which I have already done. As you can see, the operating mode is exclusive. And then I click on the plugins tab. There are no plugins currently registered in this for this repository. I choose Actions, Register Plugin. It's going to prompt me for the path where I have my pmnetezza.xml. I browse and that is my file. And it needs my authentication details, which is administrator, and its corresponding password. And once it's done, it's going to tell us that the plugin is registered successfully. And after this, you can just restart the repository in normal mode, and the repository is now ready to be used. As you can see, it shows that it had registered the plugin successfully. It says PowerExchange for Netezza, Netezza Reader and Writer plugin. We will now move to the client side. As a prerequisite, I have the IBM Netezza odbc drivers installed in the program files path. It doesn't necessarily have to be residing here. We just have to make sure that these are accessible. You can see the contents of this. It has the JRE directory, and underneath that you have all the files that are required. I'm going to create a sample DSN. We can do it from the designer, which I'm going to show how to do right now. I connect to my folder. We'll first work with a source import from database, and you can create a DSN from here, and it has to be a system DSN. You do an add, and you choose Netezza SQL, and I give the credentials, just giving you some sample values, the database name, username, and password, and you can do a test connection. I have already created a connection earlier, which I'm going to use right now, which will be showing up in this drop-down list. I give my credentials. I connect. By default, it's only showing the schema of this user. I choose all, then I can see all the tables. I choose my source table, and I import. I now have my source successfully imported. We're going to move over to the targets now. I choose the target designer, and I choose import from database again. I can use the same DSN that I had created earlier and provide the credentials again. And I choose my target. I have my sources and targets imported successfully now. I'm going to create a mapping create, and I'm going to call it NV to NV. And I'm going to pull in my source and target into the mapping now. I'll keep it as simple as possible, so no transformations at this point. I link my source ports to my target, and I save my mapping. So we're done on the client side, importing the sources and targets and creating a sample mapping. And I'm going to go over the steps that we have to do on the server side. This is my Linux box or any Unix box or any server side where I have my Powercenter services installed. As mentioned earlier, there are no additional components that need to be installed here except the Netezza odbc drivers. And you can see the variables that are required are already set as we discussed in the slideshow earlier, and the odbc.ini path is set, odbc.ini is set, and the LD library path has the value where my Netezza odbc drivers reside. And I will show you the sample entry that I have in my odbc.ini file. This is the sample DSN entry with my driver path and all the credentials. That's all the steps that we need to do on the server side. We have to make sure that the Informatica services are restarted once we make any environment variable changes in the .cshrc or .pro file to make sure that the variables are taken into effect. I'm now going back to the client side to create a relational connection and create a sample session and workflow. This is my workflow manager. I connect to my folder where I had imported my sources and targets and generated a sample mapping. I'm going to choose my workflow designer and create a workflow. Now I have my mapping created. You can create the relational connection from here, and you choose type. When you create new, choose type Netezza, and by default it took up a name. This name is just a logical name. You can name it whatever you want. The username is the actual user that you want to use to connect the Netezza database, and the corresponding password. And the connect string should be the same string that you had used in the odbc.ini file. So this NZ-SQL clavy is how we relate to the connection that we had created on the server side, and we're going to use that to create the DSN here, relational connection here. That's done. Now we are ready to use that connection in our mapping. For the source, you are provided with two choices: relational reader and Netezza bulk reader. Netezza bulk reader, as the name indicates, it is going to leverage the bulk reading capabilities. I'm going to choose that and choose one of the connections that I had created for Netezza. And same with the target, we have two options: relational writer and Netezza bulk writer. Bulk writer is going to leverage the bulk writing capabilities, and I'm going to choose one of the relational connections. And the attributes are pretty self-explanatory. You would just choose whatever options you would like, and we're done with this. And we save and run. The session succeeded, as you can see. So that's pretty much it. I hope this was informational, and for any feedback, you can contact us at supportvideos@informatica.com or contact us at Twitter. I hope this was informational. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.